can SMS at any time during the show. Type Spectrum, leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
Hello, a very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmond. Kizito on Spectrum. Tonight we'll review the week. Some of the issues we'll look at. The escalating saga in the Prime Minister's office related to corruption. More countries have cut aid to Uganda because of that scandal. As Parliament takes up the matter, they have ordered that Prime Minister Pius Bigirimana be fired, but government is still standing by him. They also mentioned the procurement of a new car for the Prime Minister, valued at over 600 million shillings. We'll talk about that. Uganda pulling out of Somalia. Is it true? Is it a ruse? Government says they will draw troops from Somalia. That's according to the Prime Minister. He spoke to Parliament last night, Thursday night. They say they want the troops to go and instead blockade the Uganda DRC border protected. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the swearing in of the cabinet. President Museveni says the cabinet should be frugal, that is, spend money wisely, and they should also work hard. Shall we see that? Can we expect to see that? We'll also talk about the crisis at Molago since Entebbe is being taken over apparently by the government. Our guests tonight, Dr. Bainomugisha, head of the Peace and Security Program at ACODE. You're most welcome, Dr. Bainomugisha.
Thank you, Edmond, and good evening, listeners and viewers.
We're also joined by Honorable Michael Mabiike, former Makindye East MP, now President of the Social Democratic Party. You're most welcome, Honorable Mabiike.
Thank you. Good evening.
We expect to be joined by Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, two-time Uganda represented by the East African Parliament, and Mr. Fred Bamwine, Resident District Commissioner of Mpigi District. Dr. Bainomugisha, Uganda. Let's talk about this scandal. How deep is it in your reading?
Thank you very much, Edmond. I think there is a serious crisis at the Prime Minister's office. And of course, as you can see, investigations are not yet concluded. But I think it looks like it's a serious crisis that could actually jeopardize the effective implementation of the PRDP. For some of us at ACODE, we've been engaged with the implementation of the PRDP. The first one actually, when the new one was redesigned in 2000 and launched by the President in 2007, as an organization we realized that, of course, you remember NUSAF. NUSAF was
the precursor of PRDP.
Yes, yeah. After NUSAF, then of course PRDP. And now NUSAF has been fused into the PRDP. But you see, NUSAF was characterized by a lot of mismanagement and corruption of resources. And we thought that PRDP needed to be implemented differently. We designed a program that was supposed to continuously monitor and work with the Office of the Prime Minister and the local governments and other society. But actually, that attempt also was frustrated. I can assure you that the Office of the Prime Minister they did not want the involvement of civil society, strict involvement. And you cannot implement huge sums of money like this one without serious scrutiny of civil society as it is state. And the consequence, of course, has been this one. But let me say that actually what we see happening, especially in respect to the PRDP, is a continuation of the war economies. The war economies that characterized the LRA war, the Road to Resistance movement war. So many people are benefiting from that war, either from the military side, the politicians, and so many. So this has continued. We continue to see war economies, but in this case, the majority of the beneficiaries or the proponents of war economies actually are politicians, people like and technocrats, people like Kazinda and others. And so, because of what we are seeing and failure by the top leadership, especially the PS, to provide that oversight and allow also other stakeholders like civil society to help him, I think we may fail to achieve the objective of PRDP in northern Uganda. But again, it fits the country again to the possibility of a repeat. Because underlying the conflict in northern Uganda was the whole issue of economic marginalization or economic underdevelopment. And so, and we think that by intervening, by bringing development, affirmative action in northern Uganda, if PRDP was implemented very well, then then the underlying, the deep root of the conflict would have been removed. But now, if the money has remained here, people building 20 bedrooms, houses, big cars and what.
Which is not bad if they earned the money.
If they earned the money. Actually, the money has remained in Kampala, the money is going to the north, and that creates a fertile ground for fermenting a fresh rebellion, especially if there is no recovery and rebuilding of lives, and the conditions of war will continue to obtain, and we could see, I see a precursor of a new fresh round of a rebellion. But of course, this is also linked with other...
A rebellion based on perceived economic marginalization.
Perceived, but of course, while we could call it perceived, it is real in a sense that you see the two Ugandas in terms of development. Yes, generally Uganda is not a developed place, but people are talking of the two Ugandas, one developed and one relatively developed and one very poor, the north, and the indicators show that. So I think here was an opportunity through the PRDP to bring the region up to speed and catch up with the rest of the country. If people actually if people are aware of economically the temptation to join rebellions that destroy their hard-earned or their well-being, it is reduced completely.
And of course, before NOSAF, we had the NAP, Northern Uganda Reconstruction Program, fomented by Betty Bigombe in the early 1990s, which was also a failure. Would you say it was a failure?
Yes, most of them were a failure, and actually we are looking at the PRDP as actually salvation, because first of course the argument then was that those ones were implemented during
when the insurgency was still going.
The insurgency was going on, and it was difficult for government to implement that program. But PRDP is being implemented in a peacetime, because really in the conditions of relative peace. And so we cannot say that the government cannot reach all parts of northern Uganda. So I was looking at the PRDP as a program that would make a difference, but actually to implement, I think the office of the Prime Minister needed to open up. I tell you, I think the attempts by civil society to open up the implementation was always met with suspicion by the officials at the office of the Prime Minister, and that actually, I think, helped the thieves to root.
All right. We'll get deeper into that, of course, with your involvement at ACODE, having been a part of the implementation or the monitoring of that project. We'd like to get more of your insights. Honorable Mabiike, what's your reading of this crisis, broadly?
You know what? Those who know the movement well know that corruption has been with the movement since the Bush days.
How do you mean?
In the Bush, they robbed the banks. You know that. In the bush, they stole goats and chicken. The leaders ate chicken while the others ate cassava. Now, with this kind of corruption, we can trace it from Luwero rehabilitation. You remember? That when they came here, they gathered money for rehabilitation. Who was heading it? Dr. Samson Kiseka. Money got lost. And when Kiseka was asked, why did you dip your hands in the Luwero fund? He said, I am also an orphan.
It was money for orphans, and he was an orphan.
He was an orphan.
Yes. He was 8 years old and had no bodies.
Now, this is the first project meant to lift people out of bad conditions that have really been ripped bare. You remember the Valley Dam saga? The money that was meant to dig dams to provide water for Karamaja. It was a big project. And the Minister of Agriculture mismanaged it. Money was squandered, money was stolen. And when the person who was presiding over this was asked, where the valley dams, say those who cannot see, who can't see,
are sinners.
Valley dams are sinners.
You're standing on them, but you cannot see them.
Oh yeah, you are standing on valley dams, but you cannot see them.
Only righteous people could see them.
Now we come to Jogam. We come to the helicopter saga, the junk helicopter, you know. All these defense procurements over the years have all been
quite minute uniforms that could not.
Yeah, you know the uniforms imported from China. You remember,
for children.
And the side uniform imported from China to fit a man like Moses Ali. And then you see all these junk helicopters, junk military hardware, and all this. Now we come to PRDP. My take on this is that one of the major failures of national resistance movement is the failure on corruption, to fight corruption and really get out of corruption. And where we are, the situation is irredeemable.
What do you mean?
You cannot, I do not see the national resistance movement fighting to rid the country of corruption in the remaining years it has. They have fed on the job for the last 25 years. From the time they captured power, 26 years, we have been fed, we have read, we have witnessed stories of corruption. I don't see the national resistance movement fighting to rid the country of corruption in the remaining years. Now, the PRDP is a very, very sad story. And it is a shame that the whole Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda has been defending his permanent secretary just until yesterday when he changed position. Even before donors, the whole Prime Minister, who knows?
Has the Prime Minister changed his position?
Well, he changed position yesterday. In Parliament, he did change position with all the fire from Parliament.
So what is the new position?
He said, well, let the PS stand now aside. Let him join the other 17 who have been interdicted, so that he paves the way for investigation. But it was shameful and it is sad that until yesterday, a person and a government official who is tasked with the responsibility of overseeing a ministry, and that's the chief accounting officer, could fail to take responsibility, could fail to admit that it was a failure on his part, actually, that this money was stolen under his eyes, under his watch, and he could not step aside. Now, it's also sad that for such a long time, the Prime Minister's office could condone such unconventional accounting procedures. How? As I have read, how can you condone a practice where money meant for official work and activities is banked on people's personal accounts? How can you condone a practice of this?
How do they separate their monies from the government?
And I mean, even if this is temptations, even if you bank it on Mabiike's account, Mabiike has got problems. He has got 6 children. He has got, and
maybe there's even an overdraft on that bank.
Oh yeah. There are loans, there are overdrafts on account. Now you bank charges. You bank money meant to do
national
activities on private accounts, and I think it is a very sad story that we are seeing in the office of the Prime Minister. But to me, I don't distinguish it from the very culture that we actually began with. We began with that culture of get rich quick. We began with the culture. Actually, here we are calling it Tuarire. You know what Tuarire culture?
That was UPC.
Even the other days. Other days, but even other days of the movement, people are saying, to good and bint. We are following 2 things.
I thought there was nothing.
So this culture has continued. We are having overnight millionaires. You remember, we also had the Jim Mwezi saga. We had the Kutesa saga. In Parliament, people were asking, what do you do to have this sort of money?
And they found the silver bullet.
Oh yeah. So the national resistance movement. For me, I don't want to debate the PRDP in isolation. I want to debate it in relation with what has been happening, and I have concluded that unless we have perhaps a regime change, we cannot rid this kind of corruption.
Dr. Bainomugisha, why is the Attorney General saying the permanent secretary is innocent? And we know President Museveni, in 2008, said the man is very, very clean.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think, of course, I want to differ a bit from my honorable here. That I think maybe using individual failures to perhaps to judge the entire government perhaps could also be going too far, because now what would mean like the whole government should resign.
I think he's trying to explain. We'll go deeper. He'll give us more, but I think he's trying to explain it from the genesis to revelation.
Of course, you see, I want to discuss. I think natural justice demands that we tackle individual cases, because maybe
but sometimes the trend gives you an idea about what's likely to come in the future.
Has had its achievements that if you put it on a weighing scale, maybe then of course you know.
Of course, we're not talking about the movement. We're talking about the corruption inside of the NRM. So we can't remove the old.
I think there are people
cases
in the NRM that are very clean, that have sacrificed, that have worked.
Okay, maybe we'll talk about that another time.
That's why. No, wait. That's why I think that people should be now tackled in their individual case. The permanent secretary, and I think Mbabazi was right to accept the pressure from Parliament for the PS to step aside, because that also means the respect for the other arms of government. But I think, of course, there is that consistent pattern of corruption, and I think it calls into question the ability, of course, of government to fight corruption. On that point, I agree with you, but I think a general blanket amnesty on the entire government vote of confidence, perhaps of no confidence, so I think maybe going there too far.
Honorable Mabiike, do you think we should begin to take political responsibility? Is the Prime Minister fit to stay in that office, or do you think he should also take political responsibility and step aside?
Unfortunately, the Auditor General's report does not mention the responsibility the Prime Minister is supposed to take.
It doesn't even mention the permanent secretary. It actually says he's innocent, he's clean.
And that's also another area to investigate. To what extent is the Prime Minister involved? The Prime Minister is the political head.
Of course, he has denied. He says he's never stolen any money. We know he's a man. He's a man with a clean record. That is relative, because you know for sure that I've been in Parliament, and there have been cases, there have been issues with the Prime Minister. There have been issues on Temangalo. There have been issues on Shogam. There have been issues on oil. He's been cleared on all of them.
It is unfortunate that again the PRDP is coming under his docket.
But the man is cleared. He's been cleared from each one of the cases. Why do you?
We have a pattern. We have a pattern, and this is a record, a public record. There is a record of the Prime Minister on Temangalo. There is a record of the Prime Minister on Chogam. There is a record of the Prime Minister in the oil bribery saga. Now we have a record, another record coming under his docket, PRDP, Prime Minister's office. So I think this brings into question whether really it is a coincidence that that all this happened
on that point
by coincidence and by accident, and whenever this comes up is actually cleared in bracket.
Let's look at another case. Can I get some context here? Let's look at another case. There's also a probe into the procurement of a nuke, apparently, for the Prime Minister. Of course, he doesn't handle procurement. We know that he's far above that. The vehicle is valued at over 600 million shillings. Now, in May, some legislators, Odongaoto and Samokot, Odongaoto is, of course, an opposition person, but Okot is an NRM person. They said that a staff at the OPM had told them that the money had been diverted from the PRDP account. Of course, the Prime Minister doesn't handle those things. Do you think, what do you read in that?
But you know for sure that there is, whenever a procurement of this nature is going to be done, the person for which this procurement is meant is consulted. I have never known of a situation where procurement officers sit in their offices and they think for the big man. The big man is always consulted. Oh, what sort of thing are you looking at? What sort of?
Well, the man was given a account, he hadn't been consulted.
That's not correct also. And if you give me a program, I can produce evidence that even the mayor was consulted, and he actually even wrote letters demanding for this vehicle. So there is no way that a procurement of this magnitude could have been done without the Prime Minister knowing that a Mercedes-Benz of this class, of this cost, of this specification is about to be procured.
Okay.
Government procurement takes 90 days. 90 days.
3 months.
Let me comment on that one. I think on the Prime Minister, I think there is a case here. And of course I want to agree with my friend here. The consistent pattern of conflict of corruption scandal brings into question the character of the person. I think we need to dig deeper.
Oh, dear Prime Minister?
Yeah, the Prime Minister. But I'm sympathetic to the PS who is exonerated by the Auditor General's report, and of course with all due respect, the Auditor
But the Prime Minister, this saga began about 2 years ago. He wasn't Prime Minister. You're victimizing an innocent man.
He is enumerated, consistently, of course, the Temangaro, the oil scandal, and now they've been following him, and I think maybe it is important.
Maybe just has bad luck.
Either he has bad luck and that kind of thing. But again, on the vehicle, I think he may not. I think he must have a hand in his process.
So, but how did you expect him to drive? An old car driven by his predecessor? He doesn't. I won't do the same.
Buy a vehicle for the Prime Minister, but for him to allow the part of the money meant for the pyramid,
the poor in the north.
I think that was
coming out of camps.
Yes.
Do you think we should have a forensic? Of course, you work for ACODE. You are involved in some of these oversight issues. Do you think there should be a forensic audit in all 11 ministries under the OPM?
I think that we should take this opportunity to completely actually fight corruption from that vintage point. I think I would support.
Stop the OPM and go sweeping right across.
Right, because if we don't
clean the house,
there is a nexus between actual corruption and national security. I think corruption of this magnitude threatens the survival of the state and the citizens of this country. So I think we need to take this opportunity to overhaul the entire, look at the entire state operations and actually bring to book seriously. Again,
remove the ghosts of corruption.
I agree with Charles that we may need to review the legislation and make corruption very
a criminal. Well, it's already criminal.
It is, but we
make it treason.
Make it like treasonable and make it very, very painful.
You know, donors are cutting of aid. Rwanda has said if they don't get aid soon, the economy will grow much slower. We can't be an exception.
But again, in the case of Uganda, maybe I need to be helped here. I think time has also come to rethink about this donor aid. Do we need aid? Because it looks to me that most of the donors...
Well, they help us with accountability. Without aid, you can imagine what would happen, probably.
I can assure you that your mother... Okay, let me use my mother. I don't know whether your mother is in the city, but my mother who is in the village, if this donor aid did not come, she may not know, because I think this money does not trickle down to most of our peasants who actually feed this nation. So I think it's high time we rethink this aid. Aid, of course, allows donor countries to have a say here, but also I think it traps us into that.
But for accountability, we benefit from aid there.
We don't need this aid because I think most of the aid is eaten by our technocrats.
This is Spectrum on Radio 1. We're going for a break. We'll be back to stay tuned.
Excuse me, guys. Let me through, please.
Yes.
What? Chick biscuit? Goodness, dude, what are you doing? Get real. Just move a little bit. Man, what are you doing bringing a cow into the sitting room? It's just for when I want milk. Just what? Just please move. Let it come and sit here.
Show me this guy. You cannot keep a cow in your home, but you can get the freshness of its milk straight from the farm into your home. Get Fresh Diary Milk for freshness straight from the farm every day. Fresh Diary, so fresh.
Let's get this started.
Discover the new invigorating taste of Red Vodka Lemon. Red Vodka Lemon. Reinvent the night. Not for sale to persons under 18.
John, Mike and I, we go back a bit. We knew John at the beginning, working for someone else. But he was different. He had vision, saw opportunities. He started working towards his goal, opened his own garage, and worked, learning the hard way. His reputation spread. Trust, consistency, quality. Soon people were coming to him from all parts. He made himself and his whole street prosper, and also helped friends, seeing potential in people and helping them on. But John never shouts about all his success. He's just who he is. Special.
So here's to men like John, who make a difference, who enjoy Nile Special, the rich, satisfying taste from the source. Nile Special. You've earned it.
Not for sale to persons under 18.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum. Tonight we are reviewing the work. We've just been looking at the office of the Prime Minister saga. How far should the net go. We are going to be looking at Somalia and other things tonight. The Entebbe Hospital, a crisis in Mulago as an overflow comes in from Entebbe, apparently. We'll also talk about the new cabinet that was sworn in, with men and women of integrity taking the oath at State House in Entebbe. Our guests tonight, Honorable Michael Mabiike, former Makindye East MP, President of the Social Democratic Party. Like most MPs from Makindye, he has a fiery tongue, I have with that disclaimer, and very intelligent man from my own estimation. Dr. Bainomugisha, head of the Peace and Security Program at ACODE, also a lecturer at Makerere University. We also expect to be joined very, very shortly by Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, a two-time Ugandan representative at the East African Parliament. I'll announce her as soon as she comes in. She's here. She's got her breath. Welcome, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto.
Good evening, listeners.
Well, let's talk about this Uganda pulling out of Somalia. Do you think, maybe before we talk about Somalia, let's talk about the swearing in Entebbe. Dr. Bainomugisha, President Museveni, after 3 months waiting, eventually the miracle happened. They were shown, but the president warned them against a lavish lifestyle. They should not fly abroad very often. They should stay at their desks and work very, very hard for this country that just marked 50 years of independence. Dr. Bainomugisha, apart from the large size of this government, RDC's advisors, and other people, cabinet, large cabinet, 80 plus ministers, 70 plus, does our cabinet live lavishly?
I think that's maybe the president has opened up some door that actually has been closed. I don't understand that the citizens know the remuneration or the package of our ministers, and I think it's high time that our citizens know the kind of package that our ministers get, so that when they see them living beyond their means, they are able to question them. And it's the same thing like the civil servants. The civil servant earns like 1 million, 2 million, but you see them building mansions, and simply because people don't understand the packages. I think the president was right to warn the ministers, and if you realize these are young ministers, their expectation could be that they are going to live a lavish life. But I think we cannot expect any difference between them and all the ministers.
You think there was a time when they drove Nissan L'Oreals?
Yeah, that has changed, and I think you will see that these ministers again, they have come in when the government is almost halfway its term, and I think they will.
Well, it's not even 2 years yet.
Yeah, but this is it's almost 2 years.
It's 1.5 years, just about 30%.
I don't expect that these ministers are going to live a different lifestyle than other ministers.
You think they'll still live lavish? So what's the silver bullet? How would you deal with public expenditure / the cabinet? Or what? You've sung songs about that.
I think first of all, of course, we have such a huge cabinet. We have a huge parliament. We have so many presidential advisors. Public expenditure is bloated in this country. And of course, I think some of us have almost lost that battle to bring down public administration expenditure. Honestly, I can assure you that my expectations are very low in this. Let them enjoy.
Special advisor on special advisors. Maybe that position also should be created. That one I would be happy to take. The only government job I probably would want to take. Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, President Museveni saw in his cabinet a little bit late, 3 months late. He says they should not live lavishly. Is that advice you would take if you had been appointed?
I don't think I need the president to tell me how I should live. By the time you qualify to be a minister of a country, you should be up to that job, and therefore it does not mean that you live lavishly before or after being a minister. Your lifestyle should not have nothing to do with your responsibilities at the time you become a minister. You should deliver services. So for me, I did not understand. Well, I was not an appointee, but I did not understand the context under which
I think the president said resources.
But Edmond, let me first of all talk about. I like sharing experiences. For example, I've just come back from Nairobi. We speak here on radio and we lament, but if we do not check the excesses of what we see today, the country will pay a very heavy price, bigger than what we had in 1980-86. This one I can promise you. And I'm sure. Yeah, because this is still a real issue. Because you cannot convince me that the technocrats who have built a network to swallow vulnerable Ugandans' money or NRM, you have to convince me, because technocrats are not politicians. They don't belong to political parties. So I think we should get that correct. This is about Uganda. This is about Uganda, and remember that in 2002 there were a lot of fights, and 97 to remove Moi from the Kenyan leadership, and they were saying he had overstayed and there was so much corruption. So of course Moi went. In 2002 there was government in Kenya without President Moi, and they could not just do away with corruption. They tried to fight it. You remember when I'm coming? You remember the Goldberg scandal and all the other things
during Moi's time.
Just listen to me. When the new government came in power without Moi, they thought they would unearth the embezzlement of funds so that they are able to clean and move on. They thought the issue was about Moi, and therefore that with government, exactly, there was a campaign saying that yote inawezekana bila Moi. Everything is possible. So I'm giving you a category of what happened to Uganda. If we are now, Bamwine is the volumes now of money that is being embezzled, because in the past we were saying, this corruption is about people meeting ends, right? Making ends. But when you making ends meet, when you see billions of money disappearing in a few attract individuals, it is going to be a security problem for our country. It's a huge governance issue for our country. I want to explain the issue that happened in Kenya, because now when they try to get members of parliament on select committees and the people in the judiciary to investigate these government scandal issues, they failed. Why? Because these people had taken all this money, were sponsoring candidates to parliament. I don't know if you get my point. I'm saying this, that if government, they want to have something beyond the legal instruments that are being used now and investigations. It's a big moral issue. It's a security issue. I just want to say that this is like a wake-up call. What should we do? And we have leaders. They have to be told that this matter is more serious than they think. The way they are handling it. What's the silver bullet? The issue is leader as well. If you had the power, what would you do? Give us a silver bullet. Definitely, we can overhaul of the system. There is no way you can tell me today in the financial regulations that money can go on personal accounts. All right. And whether that gets all of it, it can never work. Let's move forward before our stomachs begin. Channel, we'll just be going back. If you can, and I've been interrupted. Go on, madam. There are systems that must be in place, and that there must be a cost to whoever has been caught embezzling public funds. Say it in black and white, plain English. Yeah. What should we do? Honorable Mabiike can help. I have a problem. Briefly, very briefly. Especially. No, but you have been interrupting. I don't know how you want me. You want me to, don't even put me on the spot. Because I'm a Ugandan. Don't please. Let me tell you again. And this is where we go wrong. Sorry, let's say from where we go wrong. And I have to say this in black and white. The moment you partisan this problem of corruption, we are done. It happened in other countries, they never made it. We need to know. How should we do? Can you define for us the overhaul, madam? People who have heavily embezzled money, they should be taken through the court process, but they should also refund the money. We have institutions of government which are not even NRM, the police, the intelligence services. Right. The moment you make it an NRM issue, that's the beginning of the loss. Because these technocrats are not, they don't have party faces, do they? All right. They don't. The difference between European and African governments is that European and other governments take responsibility. They admit failure. Africans, and sometimes they even come out and do apologize. The President of the Republic of Uganda has admitted that he has fought so many wars of using guns, using bullets, using katyushas. Right. But on this one, he's fading. Let's move forward. We've just been joined by Mr. Fred Bamwine, Resident District Commissioner
from Mpigi district. You're most welcome, Mr. Fred Bamwine.
Thank you, and I want to apologize. I didn't know that there's this jam still in Kampala.
Why did you think the cars had gone?
I thought they went with me in Mpigi.
You thought they followed you to Mpigi? Well, talk to us about Museveni's cabinet, President Museveni's cabinet. He says the cabinet should stop living lavishly. Is that something that they're doing already, or are they not?
I don't think even he mentioned lavishly, but he tried to indicate that as appointed cabinet, there are tasks they must accomplish. And he did indicate that there are more tasks around in the country than abroad. And that's why I said you should reduce the troubles and all this. But I think the bigger issue to this, I am one of those who are not contented with the 1995 Constitution.
Yes.
The framers concentrated much on
civil liberties.
On civil liberties, on blocking.
They even introduced democracy, which you hate.
Blocking the possible dictators. Yes, I don't. I have researched. There is no country in the world among the G8 which has developed the cause of democracy and human rights. Therefore, where they missed it is, for instance, to allow politics to be the only source of employment that is paying highly unchecked. Parliament in Uganda is the only institution that is allowed to allocate itself resources without being checked by anybody. That was a mistake. Secondly, because leadership should be a service, but not a job. But now, politics, it's one of the biggest businesses that is in the country.
Yes.
And we have businesses in politics. That's one of the big challenges. For instance, you are mentioning about corruption.
Yes.
Fortunately, there's Honorable Mabiike here. He knows it.
What does he know?
He has never been in NRM, but he knows it. His part and his group were in charge of Kampala for about 20 years. And I can tell you,
which party is that?
That was DP. He was DP himself.
Yeah, we know that.
And he's the one who brought these leaders himself. And I can tell you, many could come.
He was in charge of Kampala for 20
years. Many could come from Treasury to KCCA, and it disappears. And him and other people could not even raise a finger.
So it's not
and one of those who have been at it. This mess you are seeing in Kampala, it is them. It's not about anyone. So when we are talking about addressing the question of corruption and others, we must admit that as a country, yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, we'll get to that.
On this one.
Let him conclude. Then
that's what I would say. That on the issue of corruption,
yes,
as a country, we must agree that yes, we are building a system.
Yes.
And a system which must make corruption very risky.
Right.
And one of the things we must do is to have the laws which are so rigid, stringent, to make anybody who gets involved in corruption and to make that's a no-go area. And that one can only be done not only by NRM, but
all
accept that Ugandans are responsible. Look at the individual parties. If you could see what is happening in the parties, if people can steal money in their own parties,
I have not seen
this is Spectrum on Radio 1. You can you might not be able to call in, but you can send your text message. What you do is type the word Spectrum in your phone browser, send to 7197. That is Spectrum message, question or comment. Send it to 7197. One statement from you. One statement from the man from Makindye.
I have not seen a report from the Director General
accusing you of
a
political party,
accusing either Mr. Sebana or Mr. Sebagala of financial impropriety.
As we speak,
I have not heard any charges.
As we speak,
I want to talk about the cabinet.
Yes, very briefly.
What I expected from the president this time round was to reduce the size of cabinet.
He didn't do that.
The cabinet is a huge burden on a taxpayer,
right?
And he cannot caution it against being lavish. because he's leading by example. He's leading.
That's double standard.
Okay. Dr. Bainomugisha, what's your view on this matter before we move on?
My view is that fighting corruption, governing a country is the responsibility of a party in power. So you are not going to say that fighting corruption is not a party issue. It's the responsibility of those people in power. And of course, what Bamwine is saying is right.
Okay.
That actually corruption in Uganda must be fought
by the ruling party.
Yes, that's the point. Because the ruling party has a role, civil servants who are not partisan have a role. The civil service actually should be independent of partisan politics, so they serve across all other regimes.
Okay.
And until we get that right, Edmond, we are not going to solve the problem we have now.
Let's move forward. Honorable Wanyoto, staying with you, Mulago has been hit by a crisis. Apparently, we don't have figures. Reports are.
I also want to make a correction, Edmond.
Do it, madam.
The recent swearing in and appointment of ministers was filling gaps. There was no new posts at all that was created in this cabinet. They were just replacing people. There was no new post created.
That's a fact. We don't need to debate.
We're just making replacements in the same. No,
with 38 ministers.
There was a minister of general duties. The vacancy has been there.
Well,
there was no new vacancy.
Maybe we're not going to that. Let's talk about Mulago versus.
But the facts must be put correctly.
Well, but the point is the cabinet is still bloated.
We don't need
you think it's the right size? Maybe we should.
That's not the issue. The issue is Parliament approved the current numbers in the cabinet. The president only replaced those that have not been able to make money.
The time is cutting us short.
Can I come in on that one? Actually,
but this is a parliament. This is a parliament. This is a parliament where Mabiike was seated. Let's say approved that.
I remember.
So when did Mabiike?
I was in parliament for the first time when the president was appointing.
No, let's move forward.
No, ministers more than the number is supposed to.
Cabinets, the constitution.
This time round, there is no motion on record.
Right.
There is no motion on record.
Okay.
But in parliament where they seek its approval.
Because there are no new
not on this one. On the original.
There are no new
Okay, let's move forward. Reports have indicated that
cases that are new.
Okay, Dr. Arthur is ready. Let's talk about Mulago and in Entebbe. The report that there's a crisis in Mulago, they have large numbers that are supposed to have gone to Entebbe. This week, the move by State House to take over Entebbe Hospital was halted after leaders demonstrated. Some of them had placards. Do you think they should take over this hospital, or do you think they should build a new one?
Two things. I think there is a crisis in the health sector in the country, and that is well documented. But in the case of Mulago Hospital, actually, there has been serious complaint about the new leadership in Mulago. There is the new leadership actually leads people under tension. There's so much tension. It's like
among the staff.
Vice Chancellor and
really?
It's like the Vice Chancellor. I think the leader, the director, leads like the Vice Chancellor in Chambogo. Most people have been forced to resign. People cannot talk.
In Mulago.
President was less skilled people, and I think it is important to audit actually the new leadership in Mulago. But I think there's a general crisis in the country, in the health sector and the service delivery that we need to look at. When it comes to Entebbe, where the population have refused, I think the population.
What are we going to? The State House wants that hospital.
Why should the State House patients or employees be treated differently from other citizens of this country? I think we need to look at the provision of quality services, health services.
You think they should build a new one?
The citizens, they don't need to even build a new one. I think there is a great.
You know, when Sudan took over the CMI land, he built a brand new building on top of a hill in Buya. Then he left this. Do you think State House should do the same? Pick a leaf from
I don't think the State House needs its own hospital, but what they need to do is to refurbish both grade A and grade B and they could actually put an executive wing, but without building a new one specific.
Honorable Mabiike,
for the state.
That hospital, what should we do about that hospital in Entebbe? It's swamping Mulago. People are running away going to. What should we do? What's your wisdom on that?
I oppose the State House takeover of a facility that helps the common people. I have received information that State House's plan is to use it as its own medical unit. Under Dr. Diana, we are here to verify these reports. But But it is wrong, and this is part of the lavishness that we're talking about. The president talking about. It would be wrong for a handful of people or State House employees to use a facility, take over a facility that has been helping fishermen and all the ordinary people around Entebbe.
Fishermen and fishers of men. But you're the same people who complain. $150 million was apparently spent last year on treatment abroad. You don't want these people to spend the money here instead. That's avoiding the lavish lifestyle.
I don't see that facility getting tuned to that level, I think.
Honorable Lydia,
you see, we also have a mindset issue that healthcare is only within walls of a building. I think
that's with washing hands.
We need to really have a huge paradigm shift in mindsets on healthcare, because healthcare can be given even under a tent. What we need is medicines, professional workers, and have outreach programs. I've not understood why people are fighting for a building, even if whether it's a State House or Ministry of Health. I've not understood.
Where should it go?
Our biggest challenge in Uganda, not buildings, because you know that we've been having what they call health center 3 buildings countrywide, poorly constructed under billions of money. Number 2, there are no. Now we've just remembered that we need to hire health workers, and we need to pay them well and get medicine. So I think this is a beginning of knowing that to provide health services to our people, it's not about buildings.
So what should we do about this particular building? Who should it go?
The debate has already been done. I think they are
negotiating. Should it go to State House or should it go to the people?
We cannot begin shouting over a 4-wall building. Really.
Can you operate a patient and doing it safe as an NRM?
You can operate a patient. It can be done if they have proper.
Honorable, need to know certain things that we don't. Mr. Bamwine, where should that hospital go? The fishers of men?
There's one correction I have to make. Dr. Bainomugisha mentioned about the tension in Murago. Unfortunately, I'm now in administration in a district.
Back in administration.
You see, whether you like it or not, tension is bound to be there. Because you don't look at tension. Why are there tension? The question has been simple.
All right.
The question has been simple. People have been used to steal drugs.
Let's talk about it.
And once you stop them from stealing drugs, tension is going to be there. And it is only men and women who have the capacity to absorb the tension.
Might not be able to exhaust that. Let's talk about it.
About Entebbe. There's one misconception. It is going to be upgraded to be a VIP treatment center.
So they should. The people have no voice, have no say.
2, they have agreed. Minister of Defense have signed a memorandum with the Minister of Health to pool resources such that this department can be upgraded for VIP treatment center, but at the same time, the public will at the same time have its wing being operational. That is what the argument now is that Wakiso district, as a local council, wants to remain in charge of a district of that hospital. And when you look at pooling resources between defense and health, it becomes difficult now to channel those resources into a district. The only problem now is the management. Should it be under local government or it should come the same? That's the debate.
Could they build another one instead? Would it help if
by the way, building a new one that would be fantastic. But the question is, when you're looking at these facilities, you don't forget the country called Uganda. How much resources do you have?
Well, we spent $1 million.
In terms of this,
right.
If you don't have the capacity to have another hospital, what's wrong with refurbishing this one and it provides quality services?
Is that something you agree with before we move on? One statement.
I think I agree with Fred. Of course, I don't know whether he's a senior. I think he's one of the NRM cadres who can actually defend it very well.
No, this is not
is if it's management exclusive for the staff of the State House, and it's not catering for the other citizens. But all the state of health sector all over the country is one thing. And for me to give a privilege to people who have been going abroad exclusive and while our facilities decay is wrong. Now, what is that? If actually now if it is what is, I think there is a need for collaborating management.
Let's move forward. But let's talk about something else. Uganda is pulling out of Somalia. Some people think it's a hoax. We're just playing politics. Are we really going to pull out Somalia? Soldiers get a lot of money. They build houses back home.
I think
Prime Minister Mbara said last night, told Parliament on Thursday night, we're pulling out of Somalia. Is that something you believe, or we're playing politics?
Because of time, let me say that of course Uganda, I've just consulted before I came here. Uganda has been accused together with Rwanda of fomenting the trouble in the Congo, supporting M23. And of course that has hit us so much, and Uganda feels that it has been an affair.
Giving them a left hook.
When they have made a lot of sacrifices. The new report shows over 500 soldiers, Ugandan soldiers and Burundian soldiers have died in Somalia. we've done a lot in Somalia, bringing that sovereignty and the new government in power. So Uganda feels cheated. So I think what we see now
Posturing.
is posturing, but Uganda is not going to pull out of Somalia when it's one of our golden eggs that we have laid. We cannot walk away from.
What I find strange is that the Prime Minister is informing Parliament of the withdrawal, but the government never had courtesy of informing Parliament when they were actually getting into Somalia. They went in, and then later on they came in to seek parliamentary approval. They first, I have the record. They moved in first.
That's constitutional.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's a security matter. Sometimes there's no time.
No, it's clear. You can never commit any troops on foreign land without the approval.
It's a security issue.
But if it's a security matter, you can't come in Parliament.
We are talking about the Constitution. We are talking about the law of the...
Well, but if there is an invasion...
Okay, now that
there was no invasion in the first place.
I'm giving you an example.
The Somali mission is one of those unclear missions that the UPDF has undertaken.
What do you mean unclear?
We went in more as mercenaries than anything. Like,
Honorable Lydia, let's cool this a little bit. What's your reading? Do you think we're going to pull out of Somalia, or are we simply posturing so we can get a good hearing on the Rwanda DRC issue?
No, I think that first of all, we've done a great job for Africa and the region by sacrificing. It's a sacrifice to go to an area that is not peaceful, that war with themselves, and you come as a good neighbor to make sure that there is peace in the neighborhood. So for that, we give it to Uganda. For that, we give it to Uganda. Edmond has to protect me from Mabiike. You have to give it to Uganda. Whether the issue of pulling out of Somalia, they've had an election, they are really settling in. So for me, I think that we should focus on why we went there as a country, and that we should not be derailed by other forces that want to...
Let Lydia help us and tell us why we went to Somalia and what we have actually...
Uganda's biggest contribution in the region is to pacify the region, because in our interest to be peaceful and be stable in the region. You have to give it to
I think I want to put the record straight. I expected Honorable Mabiike to be conversant with history, because he should not forget that we went into Somalia out of IGAD regional meeting. After IGAD, which asked the AU that we should have a contribution, and we went under those two protocols. Had they not allowed us, we wouldn't be there.
Other countries that Uganda went and Burundi, others refused to go. It was agreed.
Well, a comment from a listener, Mr. Sally Chisiga of Ngogwe, he says, Spectrum, corrupt people are punished selectively. We have to go. Thank you very much, dear guests. Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, two-time Ugandan representative in the East African Parliament. Honorable Mabiike, ferryman from Makindye. He was a legislator. The people from Makindye who sent Chanjo, Honorable Nsambo, they're men with fairy tongues. The also presence of the Social Democratic Party, Dr. Bainomugisha, head of the Peace and Security Program at ACODE, and Mr. Bamwine, Mpigi. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond. She's back on Monday.
Imagine never being unreachable again. Imagine no more buffering and unreliable connections. Imagine no more high costs on IT equipment and support. Imagine no more administrative